President Cyril Ramaphosa is hosting German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. He's on an official visit to the country after visiting Senegal and Niger. It's likely that South Africa's non-alignment in the Ukraine-Russia conflict will come up. The leaders are also likely to discuss trade relations and tourism. Our senior reporter Pamandla Gok is at the Union Buildings and joins us now to give us more. Pamandla, good morning. A very strategic meeting today is expected to be held. A lot of issues to be discussed. Particularly, we expect that Ukraine-Russia matter. What else are we expecting?
We expect that issues of trade between the two countries will be discussed, issues of energy, issues of the environment, climate change, COVID-19 and vaccine. But most importantly, in terms of international relations and the ongoing war or conflict in Ukraine, there is no way that that topic will not feature. Let me not waste too much time. A person who will answer your question, Fundo, is Dr. Naledi Pandor. She is the International Relations Minister. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Pandor. Let's talk about the significance of this visit. What does it mean for South Africa in particular, and what is going to be discussed?
Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. Well, I think it's a very important visit for South Africa. Chancellor Scholz is the new Chancellor of Germany. We've had wonderful relations, Germany and South Africa, under the leadership in Germany of Chancellor Merkel. And we're hoping with Chancellor Scholz to continue to build on an established foundation. Germany is our third largest trading partner, so massive exports from South Africa, and we do get imports from Germany as well. But what is really wonderful is Germany is very, very well invested in South Africa. You're familiar with the automotive sector, for example. German companies are a big part of that, BMW, Daimler, Chrysler. So the links are excellent, and we look forward to even stronger links.
The issue of the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine, or ongoing conflict in Ukraine, will surely feature. South Africa has been calling for a mediated solution to say, let's sit, let's talk. What will you be putting forward as South Africa's position to the Germans?
Well, you can see the terrible toll that is being suffered by the people of Ukraine. Right from the beginning, South Africa warned that war is not an option because it is the ordinary civilian that suffers. It is infrastructure that is destroyed. What we've warned about is happening in a terrible fashion. We've always argued for diplomacy and negotiations. We continue to do so. We believe that there are leaders in the world who can draw the two sides together and arrive at an outcome that both countries would agree to. Chancellor Scholz was one of the early leaders of Europe who actually went to Russia to meet with President Putin. We hope he'll be able to brief President Ramaphosa on their deliberations, as our president will brief him on his discussions with President Putin. But I think there are signs now that what South Africa has called for is increasingly becoming an accepted notion that negotiations are where we must go.
Will President Ramaphosa be asking the Chancellor to support South Africa in Africa's move for a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council?
No, absolutely. We've always had support from our colleagues in Germany on this question. As you know, Germany itself is not a permanent member of the Security Council, given the two world wars and its role in that. So all of us, countries that are outside of the permanent bloc in the Security Council, are working together to look at how we reform the United Nations bodies. And I think now, given the experience of this war in Ukraine and Russia, between Ukraine and Russia, we clearly have a situation where UN reform is urgently necessary.
And I guess the issue of tourism will feature strongly simply because Germany is one of the countries that bring in more people to South Africa. But also it's strategic to have these relations with Germany if you're looking at the world order and how politically and in terms of international relations dynamics are shifting.
Indeed, you're so correct. Germany is currently the chair of G7. We're an invited country in that forum. They're also a member of G20. We're part of G20 as one of the developing countries. So clearly, there are a range of fora where we should have shared ideas. I think apart from tourism, which is critically important for job creation and greater economic growth in South Africa, Germany is a country that's a great innovator. Hence the collaboration we have with respect to vaccine manufacturing. And Germany is investing in South African science in order to ensure that we do get to a point where we produce our own pharmaceutical products. So it's a multifaceted set of relations, and I hope we'll grow from there. I'm glad that in recent visits overseas I have used a German airline, and I've noted a return of German tourists to South Africa.
And indeed, on issues of the SOEs, particularly energy, you mentioned Germany, and currently we are struggling with power in South Africa, ESCOM challenges, and I'm sure that's one of the things that the President and the German Chancellor will be discussing, that collaboration to say how do Germans help South Africans deal with this issue of energy.
I think South Africa has got to ensure that it expands its energy production, and the route is renewables. And clearly we're walking along that path, but I think we need to run. Germany has had experience with changing from fossil fuels to other sources of energy. We will draw on that experience, but already German companies are in the independent power producer program, providing solar and wind energy in South Africa. So the collaboration, I think, is just going to, up and up. I'm glad that we now have at least a few private sector producers being granted authority by NERSA to produce that 100 megawatt. I hope we'll see many more, because we need expanded energy if we are to grow the economy as it must grow.
Especially when it comes to the just transition, because Germany had undertaken it. We share similarities in terms of our dependence on coal. They have phased it out, but the economy has detected otherwise. There is something to learn in terms of how to deal with this just transition.
Absolutely. As Africa, South Africa, and developing countries broadly, we've said to the developed world that you must provide the resources, because a lot of the problem of emissions was caused by industrialization in the developed world, and we were not party to even the benefits of that industrialization. So I think the issue of just transition and adequate funding for the change that we have brought into as South Africa. We've specified a country strategy, which I think is very revolutionary, it's radical, and it's a commitment to the world, to sustainability. I know that it's on the agenda of the Chancellor to discuss with our leaders exactly what Germany's contribution will be.
We're out of time, but I know this will not feature strongly, but the issue of gender-based violence, I remember the previous Chancellor and the Germans have donated some vehicles to South Africa in supporting the fight against femicide and gender-based violence. Surely it may be looked at as a domestic issue, but that's one thing that maybe both leaders may touch on to say, how do you support this struggle for South Africa currently?
Gender-based violence is experienced by women all over the world, and it's a battle all of us must wage and win, for the sake of our children, for the sake of our women. In South Africa, we have a particularly bad experience. Comes from our violent past, comes from our socioeconomic condition, and also comes from the belief of men in our country that they own our bodies. We need to change attitudes, we need to ensure there's adequate support for women, and we must partner with countries that have had some success at building a new social culture that respects women and equality.
Thank you very much for your time. That is Dr. Naledi Pandor. She is the Minister responsible for international relations and cooperations, as we wait the arrival of the German Chancellor for his official visit to South Africa.
All right. Spamandla, thank you very much for that update. That's our senior reporter, Spamandla Goke, out at the Union Buildings. Now,